The lecture hall of the Galactic Academy of Xenobiology was built like a fortress. Arched steel ribs curved overhead, reinforced transparent steel walls gleamed with faint shielding lines, and the floor was etched with containment glyphs that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Every cadet knew why. Today's class was not theory. Today, they would be observing one of the most dangerous life forms in the galaxy. Professor Grex shuffled to the podium, his scaled hands clicking nervously across the datapad. He was a THRYXX, a species known for their cold-blooded precision and disdain for improvisation. Yet even he looked uneasy, his spine shifting restlessly as he tapped a control. A massive containment pod hissed and rolled forward on grav lifts, its surface glowing with red warning sigils. The cadets gasped. Inside the pod, pressed against a barrier of shimmering energy, crouched a nightmare-given flesh. The Shadow Claw. It was 3 meters of sinew and bone, its claws curved like hooked blades, its eyes pits of yellow fire. Every cadet felt the weight of its presence pressing against their instincts, as if their DNA itself screamed, "Predator." Professor Grex cleared his throat, voice dry. "Cadets, before you is Shrikath, designated Shadowclaw in trade tongue. It is a Class 10 apex predator. Records state it has extinguished colonies, ripped armored battalions apart, and once, his spines trembled, once dismantled a cruiser hull with its bare claws. Study it well. Few live long enough to." Rows of cadets shivered. The insectoid Vurix clicked their mandibles in alarm. A scaled Dravari cadet actually hissed and recoiled. One of the silicon-based glimmers flickered dimly, its crystalline body emitting low panic tones. And then, of course, the human yawned. Jake leaned back in his chair, legs sprawled, doodling lazily in the margin of his hollow notes. The cadet beside him, a furred Lauren, glanced at him in disbelief. "Do you not see what is in that pod?" she whispered, fur bristling. Jake blinked, glanced at the Shadow Claw, and shrugged. "Yeah. Big kitty. Kinda reminds me of my neighbor's Rottweiler back home." The Lauren nearly fainted. Professor Grex's spines rattled angrily. "Human cadet," he snapped. "Your species has a reputation for," he paused, searching for the right word, "reckless disregard of survival protocol. Kindly refrain from trivializing the deadliest predator in this quadrant." Jake raised his hands in mock surrender. All right. No offense, Teach." He shot a look at the Shadow Claw again, muttering under his breath, "Still looks like it just needs a walk and a snack." If Professor Grex heard, he pretended not to. The lecture dragged on. Grex lectured about hunting strategies, ambush tactics, thermal cloaking, the ability to silence its own heartbeat. Every fact was more horrifying than the last. The cadets scribbled frantically, terrified. Only Jake seemed immune to the creeping dread. He tapped his pen against the desk, humming faintly, eyes glazed with boredom. Then the lights flickered. A deep thrum rolled through the hall as the containment field shivered. The glyphs on the floor pulsed erratically. Several cadets screamed. Professor Grex spun toward the control panel, spines flaring in terror. No, containment integrity is collapsing." The Shadow Claw surged forward, slamming against the barrier. The energy field rippled, cracked, then shattered in a burst of sparks. The creature was free. Chaos erupted instantly. Sirens blared. Emergency shutters groaned into place. Cadets shrieked and scrambled over each other in a panicked stampede. Desks overturned, datapads clattered to the ground, someone's translation implant squealed static as its owner fainted. Professor Grex screamed, "Remain calm." "Do not," but his voice was drowned out by the chorus of terror. The Shadow Claw stepped into the open. Its claws gleamed. Its maw opened in a hiss that rattled the air, a sound like metal tearing. Every instinct in the room screamed death. Every cadet bolted for the exits. Every cadet, except one. Jake remained in his seat. He blinked at the chaos, looked at the Shadow Claw, and tilted his head. "Huh. Guess the field broke." The predator turned its burning gaze toward him. Silence dropped over the ruined hall. Even the alarm seemed distant. The Shadow Claw crouched, muscles coiling, claws twitching. It was about to spring. Jake slowly stood, hands loose at his sides. "Hey there, big guy." His voice was calm, almost gentle. "You lost?" The Shadow Claw hesitated. The cadets, crammed against the exit doors, stared in disbelief. Professor Grex froze mid-command, unable to comprehend what he was seeing. Jake took a careful step forward. He crouched low, extending one hand. "Easy, easy. Nobody's gonna hurt you." The Predator's claws scraped the floor. Its breath came in guttural hisses. And then, slowly, impossibly, it lowered its body to the ground. Its tail twitched. Its head tilted, ears flattening in something eerily like submission. Jake smiled faintly. "Yeah. That's it. You're just lonely, huh?" The Shadow Claw rolled halfway onto its side, exposing its plated belly. Its claws flexed once, then stilled. A low, rumbling purr vibrated through the hall. Jake reached out, placed a hand on its armored hide, and began rubbing. "Good boy." The cadet screamed again, this time not in fear, but sheer disbelief. Professor Grex's jaw dropped, spines clattering in shock. That thing dismembers gods. And he's giving it belly rubs? The Shadow Claw rumbled louder, eyes half-lidding. Jake scratched gently behind a jagged ridge, nodding to himself. "See? Just needed some attention." The entire lecture hall gaped in silence as the galaxy's most feared predator melted under the touch of a bored human. For a moment, no one moved. The lecture hall looked frozen in a bizarre painting, overturned desks, cadets piled at the exits, alarms wailing, and in the center, a human calmly scratching the belly of a predator that had once chewed through battleships. The Shadow Claw purred, the sound deep enough to rattle the durasteel floor. Jake grinned, rubbing along the creature's plated ribs. "See? Nothing to worry about." Professor Grex was not reassured. His spines were stiff with terror, his voice breaking into high-pitched clicks. This cannot be happening. The creature should be dismembering you." Jake shot him a look over his shoulder. "Yeah, well, it's not. Maybe it just needed some attention. Ever think of that?" Half the cadets whimpered. The others fumbled for recording devices, their claws, mandibles, or pseudopods shaking as they captured every second. The holo footage was already uploading to the Academy net. The Shadow Claw's tail thumped the ground once, sending vibrations through the hall. Jake rubbed harder, muttering, "That's a good boy. Who's a good galactic nightmare, huh?" The Predator gave a satisfied chuff. The doors burst open. A squad of Academy security troopers stormed in, armored head to toe in riot gear. Plasma rifles hummed, shields snapped to life, and their commander, an iron-jawed Zor named Brix, shouted, "Everyone stand back. Target is loose. Prepare for containment by lethal force." The Shadow Claw lifted its head, eyes narrowing at the weapons. A hiss built in its throat. Jake instantly put a hand on its snout. Hey. Easy. They're just nervous." He glared at the troopers. "And put those toys down before you spook him." Commander Brix froze. He had fought in the Shadow Claw Wars, lost 2 squads to these beasts. He had nightmares of claws through flesh and bone. And now one was lying at the feet of a soft-skinned primate, tail wagging. "Cadet," Brix growled, voice shaking, "step away from this specimen immediately." Jake frowned. "Not happening. You'll just upset him." "Look!" He scratched under the Shadow Claw's chin. The Predator rumbled like a starship engine, then, horrifyingly, leaned into the touch. A cadet fainted outright. Another whispered, that thing has never displayed submissive behavior, ever. Not even in captivity." Professor Grex staggered forward, spines rattling like wind chimes in a storm. "This defies all xenopsychology. This creature is incapable of domestication. Its brain chemistry is wired purely for slaughter. Jake looked down at the Shadow Claw, who was rolling lazily onto its back again. Yeah, well, guess your textbooks are out of date. The security squad didn't lower their weapons. In fact, they raised them higher. Fire protocols authorized termination, Bricks barked. I will not lose another squad to this abomination. The Shadow Claw's ears flicked, catching the hostility. Its muscles coiled. Jake's expression hardened. For the first time since the breach, his casual tone dropped. Don't shoot. Something in his voice made even Bricks hesitate. The Shadow Claw tensed, sensing Jake's shift in mood. Jake leaned down, speaking low and calm into its earholes. They don't get it. But I do. You're just scared and lonely, huh? They see a monster. I see, well, I see a big dumb puppy that needs a friend. The predator blinked once, twice, then relaxed again under his hand. The cadets gasped. Professor Grex actually clutched his chest. Commander Bricks lowered his rifle an inch, unsure whether he was watching the most extraordinary diplomatic event in galactic history or the prelude to disaster. Finally, reinforcements flooded in, deans, faculty, and high-ranking officers. The hall filled with chittering, rumbling, clicking voices as arguments erupted. He has to be restrained. No, the Shadow Claw must be destroyed. Wait, observe the creature's behavior. This is unprecedented. Unprecedented? It's heresy. He is rewriting biology with his hands. Amid the uproar, Jake sat cross-legged on the floor, the Shadow Claw's massive head resting across his lap. He idly scratched between its horns, looking bored. Y'all ever think, he said casually, loud enough to cut through the noise, that maybe it's not about biology or whatever fancy word you want to throw around? Maybe it's just about being kind? Dozens of alien eyes, compound and single, stared at him like he'd grown a second head. Professor Grex sputtered, kindness does not tame a Shadow Claw. Jake shrugged. Looks pretty tame to me. He rubbed harder. The predator's eyelids drooped, and it gave a low, thunderous sigh of contentment. A silence spread, heavier than before. The alarm still wailed, but no one noticed. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a Shadow Claw looked peaceful. Bricks finally lowered his weapon fully. His voice cracked. What in the 9 black holes are you, human? Jake looked up at him, blinking like the question made no sense. Me? I'm just Jake. By the time the creature was coaxed, very reluctantly, back into reinforced containment, the lecture hall was in ruins. The cadets were shaken, the professors rattled, the security troopers shell-shocked. Jake dusted off his hands and stretched. So, do we still have a test on this thing? Or was that it? The silence that followed was louder than the alarms. Professor Grex's spines were still trembling when he whispered, half to himself, half to the galaxy at large. This changes everything. The next morning, the Academy was already in chaos. The holo footage from the lecture hall had gone viral overnight. Billions of beings across 100 star systems had watched in stunned disbelief as a human cadet casually scratched the belly of a galaxy killer while the rest of the class screamed like prey. News feeds ran it on loop. Commentators screamed over one another. Conspiracy theorists insisted the footage was faked. Predator worship cults declared Jake a messiah. Military strategists panicked, their simulations ruined by one bored primate. And in the middle of it all, Jake was sitting in a bland interrogation chamber, feet propped on the table, flipping through a crossword puzzle. The door hissed open. Professor Grex stalked in, flanked by 2 faculty members and a recorder drone. His spines were bristling so violently he looked like a walking cactus. Human cadet, he snapped, do you comprehend the gravity of what you have done? Jake didn't look up. Yeah. I stopped a rampaging death beast from shredding the class. You're welcome, by the way. Grex hissed, voice cracking with frustration. You did not stop it. You petted it. You treated a shadow claw, as if it were some domestic vermin. Jake shrugged. Looked like it needed it. He filled in a crossword square, muttering. 7 letters. Starts with P, universal panic caused by one human giving belly rubs. One of the other professors, a translucent jelly being named Rail, slurped nervously. Cadet Jake, did your species evolve some form of psychic domination? Pheromonal override? Perhaps a neurochemical weapon hidden in your skin oils? Jake finally looked up, offended. What? No. That's gross. I just like animals. And animals like me. That's it. Professor Grex jabbed a claw at him. That is not it. You violated the laws of xenopsychology, destroyed centuries of predator studies, and nearly caused mass hysteria. Nearly? Jake said. You should check the feeds. People are definitely freaking out. The recorder drone beeped helpfully, projecting a hollow of headlines. Human befriends horror beast. Galactic order in question after belly rub incident. Is kindness the ultimate weapon? Jake smirked. See? I'm famous. Professor Grex slammed the table so hard his claws dented the surface. This is not fame. This is apocalypse. Do you understand the implications? If humans can simply tame apex predators by touch, the balance of power across the galaxy collapses. Armies will fall. Ecologies will shatter. Whole civilizations will crumble. Jake leaned back in his chair, hands behind his head. Or maybe things get better. You know, fewer people eaten. More belly rubs all around. The room went silent. None of the faculty could tell if he was joking. At that moment, the door slammed open again. Commander Briggs stomped in, his armor still dented from the previous day. His eyes were bloodshot, jaw clenched tight. Professor, he growled, this is a security matter now. Step aside. Grex bristled. Commander, I am not finished interrogating the specimen, I mean, the cadet. Jake raised an eyebrow. Specimen? Rude. Briggs ignored him. Human. You will accompany me. The High Council demands immediate demonstration of your ability. Jake blinked. What, like a talent show? Briggs didn't answer. He simply loomed until Jake sighed, folded his crossword, and stood. Fine. But I'm bringing snacks this time. They marched him through the Academy's restricted sector, past armored bulkheads and gene-sealed vaults. Everywhere he looked, aliens stared at him with a mix of awe and terror. Hushed whispers followed, that's him. The beast tamer. Is it true he made it, purr? Jake waved casually like he was on a parade route. Finally, they reached a chamber lined with containment fields and reinforced glass. Inside, a dreadmaw paced restlessly, a reptilian titan whose throat glowed with internal fire. Its record included incinerating 3 cities before capture. The faculty crowded around observation screens. Impossible, one muttered. If he survives 5 seconds, I'll eat my own tentacles. Briggs shoved Jake forward. Do it. Prove this isn't a trick. Jake sighed, walking into the chamber as the field doors sealed behind him. The Dreadmaw's eyes locked onto him, burning coals of hate. It opened its maw, flame building in its gullet. Jake reached into his pocket, pulled out a small snack bar, and unwrapped it. Hey, big guy. Hungry? The fire faltered. The Dreadmaw sniffed. Jake crouched, holding the bar out. Yeah, thought so. Here, have a bite. To the utter horror of everyone watching, the Dreadmaw delicately took the bar between its teeth, chewed, and rumbled like a content volcano. Then, like the shadow claw before it, it lowered its massive head. Jake chuckled, scratching under its chin. Knew it. Just needed a snack. The viewing chamber exploded into chaos. Professor Grex collapsed into a chair, muttering, This cannot be. This cannot be. Brick stared with hollow eyes. I have fought wars against these things, lost men by the thousands, and it just wanted a granola bar? Jake smiled innocently, stroking the beast as it curled around him. Told you. Animals just need kindness. Maybe some peanut butter. By the time they pulled him out, over the protests of the Dreadmaw, who seemed intent on following, half the Academy was convinced they were witnessing the unraveling of galactic science itself. Jake dusted crumbs from his hands. So what's next? Do I get a certificate, or a medal? Maybe a t-shirt that says, I survived Xenobiology 101? No one laughed. The galaxy was no longer sure if it was laughing at him, or trembling because of him. The Academy hadn't slept. For one endless night, professors, commanders, and council representatives argued across secure hollow channels. Some demanded the human be expelled back to his homeworld immediately. Others argued he must be weaponized before rival civilizations discovered his talent. A few even whispered blasphemous things. What if humans were the key to universal peace? Professor Grex, who had been awake for 36 hours, slammed his claws against the conference table. His spines drooped, his eyes bloodshot. We must proceed with structured testing. Random exposure will not suffice. We need data. Variables. Controlled conditions. Commander Brick sparked a laugh, hollow and bitter. Controlled? There is nothing controlled about what that human does. He breaks every rule I know. You put him in a room with a war beast, and it curls up like a hatchling. The council representative, a cloaked arachnid dignitary, clicked its mandibles impatiently. Then test him. The galaxy demands answers. And so, Jake found himself in yet another sterile containment chamber, munching on a bag of trail mix. All right, he said, talking to no one in particular, who's the lucky contestant today? The lights dimmed. A massive gate slid open, revealing the next subject. A gravity eel swarm slithered into view, hundreds of translucent serpentine bodies coiling in midair, distorting the gravity field around them. They bent the light itself as they moved, warping the air into sickening spirals. Entire mining colonies had been consumed by these things. The faculty watching from behind reinforced glass braced for blood. Jake, however, simply whistled. Pretty. Like floating noodles. The swarm hissed, a sound like metal scraping across bone. They coiled toward him, ready to crush his bones from every direction at once. Jake tore open another snack bar. Bet you guys like salty stuff, huh? The eels slowed. Their distorted gravity fields flickered oddly, almost like wagging tails. Then, in a shocking display, the entire swarm coiled around Jake, wrapping his body like a shimmering, living scarf. Instead of crushing him, they pressed close, vibrating like a purring cat times 1,000. Jake chuckled, giving one eel a scratch along its translucent head. Yep. Big OL space noodles. Knew it. Professor Grex let out a strangled noise. One of his colleagues fainted. Hours later, the experiments escalated. A venom hydra was unleashed, it slithered straight into Jake's lap and refused to move. A mirror stalker, a predator that mimicked the fears of its prey, froze in confusion when Jake only looked at it and said, Huh. You look like my ex's chihuahua. It then sat down, tail wagging. A world-breaker behemoth larva, known to trample cities for fun, chirped like a hatchling and tried to follow Jake around the chamber. Each time, the results were the same. Absolute nightmare creatures transformed into affectionate pets under Jake's casual hand. By the end of the day, the faculty looked like survivors of a psychic collapse. Professor Grex's voice cracked as he clutched his datapad. This is impossible. Every experiment defies logic. He is not calming them, he is rewriting their instincts. Another professor whimpered, We must dissect him. Take samples. Study the human genome. Jake, still inside the chamber, shouted through the intercom, Hey! I can hear you. Not cool, Doc. Commander Brix rubbed his temples, looking 10 years older. I've fought entire campaigns against these monsters. Watched comrades die screaming. And this, boy strolls in with granola bars and scratches behind the ears. Professor Grex turned on him, spines rattling. You think this is a joke? This undermines our entire civilization. Entire military doctrines are invalidated. Jake strolled out of the chamber, the behemoth larva waddling after him like a puppy. Invalidated? Or maybe you guys were just doing it wrong. He patted the larva's enormous head. See? Nobody needed to die. Just snacks and belly rubs. The professors recoiled in horror at his words, as if kindness itself were a weapon. Later, Jake sat in a secure dormitory under armed guard. Outside his window, drones hovered. Soldiers patrolled. The entire academy had become a fortress. Inside, however, Jake sat cross-legged on the floor, the shadow claw curled around him like a massive, purring blanket. The gravity eels hovered lazily overhead, shimmering. The larva snoozed in the corner. Jake stretched, yawning. This semester abroad is wild. Wonder if the cafeteria will let me bring these guys with me. The creatures rumbled in contentment, filling the room with vibrations that made the walls shake. Across the academy, terrified professors debated, soldiers muttered about divine punishment, and the council prepared for an emergency summit. The galaxy's greatest monsters had found their favorite human. And they weren't letting him go. The summons came at dawn. Jake rubbed sleep from his eyes as armed escorts flanked him on both sides. Outside, the academy's courtyard swarmed with soldiers, drones, and scientists. Every single eye tracked him as though he were carrying a live bomb. Where are we going? Jake asked, stifling a yawn. To the council chambers, Commander Brix growled. The entire sector is watching. Jake blinked. Am I in trouble? Professor Grex, stumbling beside them with 3 datapads in his claws, snapped, Trouble? Human, you have shattered biology itself. You are a threat to our military doctrines, our security, and possibly reality as we know it. Jake shrugged. I gave some monsters belly rubs. Chill. Grex nearly fainted. The High Council chambers were a cathedral of politics. Towering crystalline pillars stretched into shadow, and floating platforms carried delegates from 100 civilizations. Their holographic insignias glowed, serpentine empires, insectoid hives, machine coalitions. And at the center, a single spotlight fell on Jake, who shuffled nervously and wished he'd brought more snacks. The session began with chaos. He must be contained, shrieked the arachnid dignitary, its mandibles clacking. A human who can pacify apex predators is a strategic weapon. Allowing him to walk freely is madness. Nonsense, roared a reptilian general. Humans must be uplifted. Imagine a species that can turn war beasts into allies. They could end galactic conflict forever. Or start new wars nobody can counter, hissed another delegate. What happens when enemy fleets march with shadowclaws as pets? The chamber erupted. Voices overlapped, translations scrambled, accusations flew like plasma bolts. Jake leaned toward Commander Brix. Do they always yell this much? Council politics, Brix muttered. This is calm. Jake sighed, then noticed something odd. Down by his feet, the shadow claw had somehow slipped into the chamber despite layers of security. It curled up like a faithful hound, tail thumping against the marble. 100 delegates froze. One whispered, it followed him here. Another shrieked, you let that thing inside? I didn't, Brix started, but stopped when the gravity eel swarm drifted in through the ceiling vents, coiling around Jake like glowing scarves. And then came the final insult to galactic authority, the behemoth larva, big as a shuttlecraft, squeezed through the side door. Somehow, it had followed Jake all the way from the dormitory. It flopped onto the floor, rumbling like a purring volcano, shaking the entire chamber. The council erupted in pandemonium. This is an assassination attempt. Arrest him. No! It proves loyalty. The beasts obey him alone. Blasphemy. It breaks the laws of instinct. Jake raised both hands awkwardly. Guys? They just like hanging out with me. Not trying to cause trouble. He scratched the Shadow Claw's head. The beast let out a thunderous trill of happiness, shaking the chamber. Half the delegates fainted. Professor Grex stumbled to the center podium, claws shaking. Council members, we are standing on the edge of a paradigm shift. For millennia, we believed apex predators operated on immutable instincts: hunt, kill, consume. Yet this human, he jabbed a claw toward Jake, negates those laws with mere affection. This is not normal. This is not natural. It is heretical biology. One delegate muttered, or divine. Grex snapped, do not speak of gods here. Speak of science. If one human can do this, perhaps all humans can. Imagine an army not of soldiers, but of beast wranglers. Empires would fall overnight. The chamber fell into horrified silence. Finally, the council chair, an ancient, crystalline being whose voice rang like a bell, spoke. Then the course is clear. The human must be tested. Not in isolated chambers, but in the field. We must know the limits of this phenomenon. If it is universal, humanity must be either elevated to guardianship or destroyed as a danger to the galaxy. The words hit like a thunderclap. Jake's mouth fell open. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Destroyed? You can't just, look, I don't even want all this. I came here for credits and maybe to meet cute alien girls, not to. The Shadow Claw nuzzled his arm. The behemoth larva tried to climb into his lap. The council delegates recoiled like children from thunder. The chair's crystal facets gleamed. Prepare the trials. The human will face the galaxy's greatest nightmares. If he survives, we will know the truth. If he fails... Its voice echoed like a funeral bell. We erase humanity before it spreads. Jake swallowed hard. Man worst. Study abroad trip. Ever. The transport doors hissed open, and Jake stepped out into what looked like a war zone. Jagged cliffs, rivers of molten stone, and a sky flickering with stormfire. The trial grounds were a scarred moon, stripped of life by centuries of weapons testing. Now it would be his exam room. You've got to be kidding me, Jake muttered, adjusting his backpack. This isn't a biology test. This is a horror movie set. Behind reinforced glass, the council's observation platform floated, filled with delegates, generals, and scientists. Rows of cameras hovered above Jake, transmitting every second to billions across the galaxy. Professor Grex's voice crackled through a speaker, human, prepare yourself. Subject 1 will be released. A gate trembled open. The creature that emerged was an eclipse hound, a predator bred in supernova remnants. It was all void black fur, jagged teeth that shimmered like stars, and eyes that burned with gravity wells. One howl could crush bones. The council chamber braced for gore. Jake crouched, digging into his pack. Hey, buddy. You hungry? The eclipse hound stalked forward, shadows dripping from its body like liquid night. Its growl deepened until Jake tossed it a strip of dried jerky. The hound froze. Sniffed. Devoured the jerky in one gulp. Then it padded forward, tail wagging like an oversized wolf, and pressed its head against Jake's chest. Jake scratched behind its ears. Knew it. Big dog energy. Billions of viewers gasped. Professors shrieked. Delegates screamed heresy. The hound lay down at Jake's feet, whimpering for more snacks. Subject 2 was worse. A sky leviathan, a beast larger than entire cities, descended from orbit with a scream of ripping atmosphere. Its wings blotted out the sun, and its screech shook the cliffs to rubble. Entire fleets had been sacrificed just to drive one away. Jake craned his neck. Whoa! Big fella. The leviathan dove, jaws wide enough to swallow a dreadnought. Soldiers behind the glass begged the council to intervene. Jake just whistled and waved both arms like he was calling a farm animal. "Come here!" The impossible happened. The Leviathan banked, slowed, and landed with a quake that cracked the trial grounds. It lowered its colossal head. Jake stepped forward and rubbed the side of its beak. The creature's throat rumbled like a purring engine. Then, humiliation of humiliations, it flopped onto its back, exposing a stomach the size of a football field. Jake laughed. "Guess you're just a big bird who wants tummy scratches." The council chamber exploded in chaos. Some shouted, "Weaponize him." Others screamed, "Exterminate humanity now." But the third subject silenced even the loudest voices. The gates creaked open, and from within stepped something no living being had ever seen and survived. A primordial devourer. It was ancient. Wrong. Its body was a shifting mass of tendrils, eyes, and teeth that defied geometry. It wasn't simply alive, it radiated hunger, bending reality like a wound in spacetime. The council chair itself whispered, "This is madness. Release it and it will consume the moon." But Professor Grex, trembling, insisted. "We must know the limits." The devourer surged forward, screeching like a collapsing star. The Eclipse Hound cowered. Even the Leviathan recoiled. Jake stared at it. "Okay, you're creepy." The devourer lunged. Entire monitors shorted out from psychic backlash. Delegates screamed and shielded their minds. "Jake?" He just dropped his backpack, pulled out a squeaky chew toy shaped like a bone, and squeaked it. The devourer froze. Every eye turned toward the human. Jake squeaked it again. The universe's oldest nightmare tilted its shifting head, then slowly slithered closer. Tendrils twitched. Eyes blinked. Teeth retracted. The devourer reached out, wrapped its cosmic horror appendages around the squeaky toy, squeezed it. Squeak! Jake smiled. "There we go. Who's a good, whatever you are?" The devourer let out a guttural croon. Then, to the disbelief of billions, it curled into a ball around the toy and fell asleep. The trial grounds were silent except for Jake's voice. Well, that was anticlimactic. In the chamber above, pandemonium reigned. "Exterminate humanity," screamed one delegate. "Exalt them as gods," shouted another. "They are monsters in disguise. They are the galaxy's salvation." Professor Grex clutched his datapad, his eyes hollow. This isn't biology anymore. This is myth in motion. A single human bends apex predators, leviathans, and cosmic terrors. We are ants standing before fire. The council chair's crystalline body chimed with dread. Then the order we have built is already collapsing. Back on the scarred moon, Jake sat cross-legged, Eclipse Hound curled against him, Leviathan snoozing nearby, Devourer snoring with its toy. Jake sighed. "All I wanted was an easy semester. Instead, I'm babysitting space monsters. Hope this counts for extra credit." The galaxy trembled. The galaxy didn't sleep. The footage of Jake taming the Eclipse Hound, belly rubbing a sky leviathan, and handing a squeaky toy to the primordial devourer had already been leaked. Within hours, it saturated every comms channel, newsfeed, and black market data node. The headlines screamed across 100 languages. Human pacifies the unpacifiable. Cosmic horror defeated by Chew Toy. Beast whisperer or demigod. Memes spread faster than council edicts. A popular one showed Jake yawning, with the caption, "Galactic extinction? Sorry, bro, I've got class at 8 a.m. Another looped endlessly, the devourer squeaking the chew toy like a kitten. Billions of viewers wept, laughed, or prayed. At the academy, things had gone from tense to absurd. Jake couldn't walk across campus without being followed, not just by students, but by his monsters. The Shadow Claw padded faithfully at his heels, eyes glowing like guard dogs. The gravity eels floated around him like glowing scarves. The behemoth larva waddled along, flattening benches and leading to trails. And the Leviathan? It circled the skies above the academy like a devoted falcon. Professors fainted daily. "I swear to every star," muttered a janitor, staring at the larva squishing through a hallway, "if that thing eats the vending machine again, I quit." Jake sighed as the shadow claw nosed his backpack. "No, I don't have more jerky." "You ate it all." Students scattered in terror. Others followed at a safe distance, recording everything for their hollow channels. Jake had somehow become the Academy's most viral celebrity and its most feared hazard. Meanwhile, in the Council's grand chamber, panic reigned. "We cannot allow this to continue," shrieked one delegate. "Already pirate fleets are recruiting humans for beast wrangling. Entire military doctrines are unraveling," another shouted. "Commanders refuse to deploy war beasts against any force containing a human. They'll just defect." Others spoke in hushed tones. "Priests call him the beastmender. Sects are forming. Pilgrims are traveling to Earth. Do you not see? A religion is being born." Professor Grex stood in the center, hollow-eyed, his datapads filled with frantic notes. "You fools don't understand. This isn't just politics. This is a species-wide anomaly. If all humans share this trait, then every apex predator, every extinction tier monster in the galaxy, belongs to them now." The council chair's crystalline tones rang heavy with dread. "Then we no longer rule the galaxy. We are pets in their kennel." The chamber fell into horrified silence. Jake, however, was just trying to survive midterms. He sat in the cafeteria, hunched over a tray of alien noodles, when the Shadow Claw dropped a half-chewed hover drone at his feet like a cat with a mouse. "Dude!" Jake groaned. "I can't keep paying fines for you." The gravity eels hummed around his head. The behemoth larva tried to squeeze into a chair and snapped it in half. The Leviathan's wing beats rattled the cafeteria windows. Students screamed. Others bowed in reverence. Jake just poked his noodles. "This is my life now, huh?" That night, he returned to his dorm, only to find it was impossible to enter. The monsters had claimed it completely. The Shadow Claw sprawled across his bed. The eels filled the air like living curtains. The larva had collapsed in the doorway, blocking it entirely. Jake leaned against the wall, exhausted. "I just wanted an easy semester. Maybe meet some cool aliens. Instead, I've got a kaiju cuddle puddle." From outside, faint chants echoed. Students, or maybe pilgrims, were gathering. "Beastmender! Beastmender!" Jake groaned and covered his face. Across the stars, the legend spread. Smugglers swore that human passengers calmed the most vicious space beasts. Armies debated hiring human advisors just to neutralize enemy monsters. Whole worlds lit bonfires and prayed to the strange new myth of the human beast whisperer. And Earth? Earth didn't even know yet. Somewhere on that little blue planet, billions of humans went about their day, oblivious to the fact that the galaxy now trembled at the thought of them. The council reconvened one final time. The chair spoke gravely. "It is too late. Containment has failed. Belief itself spreads faster than law. The galaxy will bend around this human and his kind." Professor Grex whispered, "Not science. Not strategy. But affection." How could we ever have prepared for that? Back at the dorms, Jake finally managed to wedge himself between the Shadow Claw and the behemoth larva, who purred and rumbled as they surrounded him like living blankets. The gravity eels draped over him like shimmering scarves. The Leviathan's low croon shook the night sky outside. Jake pulled the covers up, muttering into the darkness. "I just wanted an easy semester abroad." The monsters purred louder, a chorus of affection shaking the walls. "Guess I'm stuck being the galaxy's weirdest babysitter." And as he drifted off to sleep, billions across the stars whispered his name in awe, fear, and reverence.